How to not go to school. Parsley Mimblewood saves the world. Chapter 4. How to teach yourself better than a teacher could teach yourself. Tuesday, 31st of March, 2020. Today I've been thinking about the number 2. That sounds kind of babyish, doesn't it? Let me put it another way. Today I've been investigating the properties of the number commonly referred to as 2. It all started when I was feeding my animals. Dogs have 2 eyes and 2 ears. Goats have 2 horns. Even Bo has 2 arms and 2 legs and 2 kind of snotty nostrils. And that got me thinking about all the twos that animals have. Birds have 2 wings and 2 feet. Dolphins have 2 flippers. Crabs have 2 claws. And Stichosaurus, the stick insect, has 2 antennae. But some things don't come in twos. Dogs have 4 legs, beetles have 6 legs, octopuses have 8 tentacles, and centipedes have 100 legs. Millipedes have 1,000 legs. Some ladies have 6 spots, and some have 8 spots. Bo has 10 fingers and 10 toes. Then I started looking at the plants in my garden. The daffodil has 5 petals. One of the daisy I looked at had 35 petals, and another one had 42 petals. The dandelions all had different numbers of leaves. I tried counting the branches on the trees, but I got confused about what counts as a branch and what's just part of another branch. At lunch, I counted 13 seeds in my apple. Then I counted the seeds in Bo's apple to make sure. He only had 10 seeds. Have you noticed the pattern? Animals have even numbers of body parts, but plants can have odd or even. The only exception is the number 1. Monkeys only have 1 tail, and you've only got 1 head, I hope. I decided to do some research on the enchanted tablet, and it turns out that almost all animals are bilaterally symmetrical. That means you could cut them in half down the middle, and they'd have the same number of legs, fingers, tentacles, snotty nostrils on either side. But plants are mostly radially symmetrical, which means you can spin them around and around and they still look pretty much the same. Imagine spinning a daisy flower round and round, so plants can have odd or even numbers of petals, leaves, branches and seeds. I was very pleased with my discovery, so I went to go and tell Bo, but he wasn't very interested in the number of parts that animals and plants have. When he grows up, he wants to be a space paleontologist. He plans to go to the moon and dig up dinosaur bones. I've tried explaining that there aren't any dinosaur bones on the moon, but Mum says it's okay because it keeps him busy learning lots of things about dinosaurs and lots of things about space. Yesterday he told me the biggest plant in our solar system is Jupiter, which I thought was quite a mean thing to say, until I realised what he meant to say was the biggest planet in our solar system is Jupiter. Today he was focusing really hard on learning how to spell pterodactyl, which is pretty ambitious because he sometimes struggles to spell bow. Mum says if you don't have to go to school, then you need to have a motivation. At school, you have teachers prowling around making sure you do your work and hitting you with canes or locking you in the chokey if you don't follow the rules. Do they still do that? I read Matilda and Danny the Champion of the World, and that sort of thing happened all the time at their schools. My motivation is curiosity and finding things out. Bo's is dreaming of being a space paleontologist. Mum's motivation is that she loves to master learning how to do things. One week last winter, she spent every night practicing juggling with oranges, and now she can juggle any fruit she likes, even pineapples. Another time she decided she wanted to learn calligraphy, the really fancy curly writing. So she spent ages practicing, and now her writing is so curly that no one can read it. Mum was more impressed than Bo by my discovery about symmetry in animals and plants, especially because we'd only learned about different types of symmetry a couple of weeks ago. Then she got out BOM. That stands for Big Book of Maths. It's an absolutely enormous maths book, and we call it BOM because that's the sound it makes when you drop it on the kitchen table. I sort of wish I could spend all of my time investigating things, but it's kind of useful learning stuff out of the bomb. Like last week, we learned all about different types of symmetry, and that was helpful in my animal and plant parts discovery today. After maths, I did some writing, this book, and Mum told me to write down some more questions about motivation and learning things at home. So here they are. What's your motivation? Are there any other types of motivation? Should you only have one motivation, or can you have different ones? What else do you need to help you learn at home? Chapter 5. How to feel joyful, disgusted, worried, angry, sad and hopeful. Wednesday the 1st of April 2020. In the corner of Beau's room, we have a big wooden toy house. A couple of years ago, we went to town to go to the cinema, and on the way home we saw this beautiful toy house in a skip, and Mum stopped the car and put it in the back seat on top of me and Beau, and we took it home. We sanded it down, then painted it green and gold. It's called the Inside Out House because the film we watched was Inside Out. We went down to the river and we collected loads of interesting looking stones. Then we painted them with different feelings. I painted a big frowning face on a pointy red stone and called him Anger. And his big brother is a jagged black rock called Rage. Sadness is a perfect round pebble. Disgust is a large brown grey rock with lots of knobbly bits. Worry is a greenish stone that's just the right size to squeeze in your hand. And Beau found a perfectly flat, round skimming stone and said that we should save it to be joy instead of throwing it in the river. To start off with, Beau and me just played out stories with the different stones, although it would usually end with Beau shouting, "Rage Rock!" and smashing all the other stones with rage. Then we started to go and fetch disgust whenever Mum suggested something disgusting for tea, like buckwheat and gherkin salad or cold Stilton and spinach soup. Now, any time I feel anxious, I fetch worry and I squeeze him in the palm of my hand. The problem is, when I stop feeling worried, I just leave him lying around and Mum stands on him and she has to go and get anger or maybe even rage. This morning I saw Beau sitting in front of the Inside Out house. He was holding worry in his hand, even though it was slightly too big for his hand to squeeze. He said he was worried about Gran. I picked up sadness, because she's just as good as worry to hold in your hand. I felt a bit sad that Gran was going to be stuck inside for so long. Normally she goes out with all the other tiny old ladies and they go and do aqua aerobics in the shallow end of the pool and eat huge slices of cake in the leisure centre cafe. Above the Inside Out house, Mum had painted a big sign in her curly calligraphy writing. It was impossible to read because it was so curly, but she told us that it says it's okay to feel that way. Mum came in and sat with us for a bit, and then she told us that she thinks that we need a new stone for the house. She wouldn't tell us what feeling it was, or even what the stone should look like, just that we'd know it when we saw it. So we all put on our wellies and trudged down to the river. Pretty soon Beau had forgotten about looking for the special stone and was just looking for dinosaur fossils. But me and Mum kept looking for ages and ages until my fingers were frozen to icicles. And Beau had made an enormous pile of dinosaur fossils. Eventually, I saw the stone we were looking for. It was underwater, lodged beneath a big craggy slab that I had to lever up. The stone was really small, about the size of an acorn, and it glistened. When you held it up to the sky, the light gleamed through it, and it sparkled like a crystal. I knew Mum would love it. "That's it," she said, beaming. "What is it?" I asked. "It's hope." We took Hope home and introduced her to all the other stones, and then Mum painted another sign to go above the house. She had to read it out because of the curly writing, but it said, "Hope is the thing with feathers," which is a poem by Emily Dickinson. We wrote another postcard for Gran, and then I thought all of this would be a good idea to include in my book. Here are some of the questions me and Bo thought of. Are you worried too? Bo asked. Do dragons like soup? Bo asked. Who could you talk to? I asked. How do your grown-ups feel? I asked. Do dinosaurs like soup? Bo asked. Is it okay to feel that way? Asked Mum. Chapter 6. The last chapter of my book. Thursday, the 2nd of April. This is the last chapter of my book. By now, you're an expert on not going to school. You could probably do it in your sleep. Pretty soon, you'll have forgotten how to go to school. Now I've finished writing my book, here are some new projects I'm going to try. Build the seawall across the river. Ask Tui to teach me to speak Maori. Learn how to juggle pineapples like Mum. Teach Einstein and Meatball the dogs to perform tricks. Teach Bo to perform tricks. Invent an 8th imaginary friend. Create a stop-motion animation with the feelings in the Inside Out house. Phone Gran and write a report about all the interesting things that have happened in her life. Create a friend for Stickosaurus the stick insect. Investigate the number 10. Help Bo learn all of the words to I Got Cabin Fever. Thank you for reading. Bye.